This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
The biggest icon in podcasting.
Welcome in, everybody, to this week's edition of Doc and Jock. I am the Doc, John Macaroon. Believe we are at episode 540. Looking forward to this one a significant amount. We're going to talk about Michigan versus Alabama, the committee's decision, the game against Iowa, what it could mean for the future. Does Michigan got a shot against Alabama? Got a lot of insights. I'm definitely curious what Adam thinks in regards to the big Rose Bowl contest that was established. I think everybody in the country is excited for New Year's Day, 5 o'clock-ish. It's the first one up, and it's going to be great. Michigan, Alabama. And then the second half of the podcast, got to talk about the Lions holding on against the Saints even after starting the game 21-0. They still had to hold on, and the Cardiac Cats, Dan Campbell said it, change your diapers. And boy, was it getting a little bit hairy there, but man, Bruce Irvin did the deed and knocked out Derek Carr, and it really does showcase that, man, when you got to go to your backups, it's really tough, especially in the National Football League. So we'll talk about it, but I'm excited because it's a good opportunity now to really focus in on the four teams that actually earned their spot. I knew it was easy, really, to decipher how, when the weekend shook out, what was going to happen. And I know the debate about Florida State being 13-0 and things like that. The first time in history an undefeated Power 5 school that wins their conference doesn't make the Final Four. But I just thought that when you looked at it from the perspective of you ever leave out the SEC champion, because you would literally be knocking out so many millions of viewers and interest that you just can't do it. And Alabama is a worthy number 4 seed. I think Michigan definitely deserved a number 1 seed, especially after their performance against Iowa, shutout. You go, you handle your business, you take care of business. And then the other two are Washington and Texas. I think that game at 8 o'clock on New Year's Day also has an opportunity to be a very classic contest. I thought the committee got it right. I think the controversy that I understand, if you're a fan of Florida State, you're going to be bitching. I would be bitching if they did it to Michigan State. But when I look at it, when you factor in ratings, interest, numbers, the committee has the right to select the teams that they believe are the 4 best. And part of that is appeal. It shouldn't be a big part, but I think when Alabama defeats the number 1 team in the country, that is such a huge asset for your case. It basically was a playoff game, and Georgia gets eliminated, and Alabama winning the SEC again puts them in a position to be the number 4 seed. I thought that was worthy. I thought they got the 4 right. I see no reason to complain. If you're Florida State, you should take that and be like, hey, if we win it all, we're the champions. We're the co-champs. If you handle your business and win your bowl game, you can just lay claim and just say it forever. And I just think that for Florida State, yeah, it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that it wasn't 12 teams now, because I think they got it right.
Yeah, I think if you are a Florida State fan, there's an argument to be made here. You can make the argument that Florida State went undefeated in their conference. They went undefeated for the season. They ended up winning their championship game with their third-string quarterback. So you're talking about a team that has some depth, the ability to go out and win a tough game with a guy who's seen little to no playing time as the season unfolded. But if you really start to delve into this game, you really look at what took place. This was an offense that barely gained 200 yards. This was an offense that looked anemic once they lost their starting quarterback a couple of weeks ago. And even if you had your backup quarterback in there, not your third-string quarterback, I think the offense would have looked better, but I don't know how much better. This team was really built upon the back of Jordan Travis, the quarterback for Florida State. I mean, he was an electric player, and that was the big talking point. That was the big selling point with Florida State. It was that electric offense with him playing. And I think more to what you said, as the bowl championship games as the championship games kind of played out on Saturday, if you were Florida State, you knew going into that game that you were going to have to put points up. You knew that you were going to have an impressive victory. And you weren't able to gain 10 yards of offense, I think, until midway through the second quarter. So at that moment in time, unless you came out in the second half and really dialed it up, there was no way you were going to get there. There just wasn't. You knew what your job was, and you kind of failed at your job. And that was kind of running the score up and looking like you were going to be a credible offense. Being able to challenge a team like a Michigan or being able to challenge a team like a Washington. So when you look at what the committee did, I agree with you. I think they got it right. Like I said, as Saturday kind of rolled out and played on, you knew Alabama had a shot. Texas was going. Texas knew what the job was. They understood what they had to do. They ran the score up. They put up a huge number. Georgia got popped. Michigan knew basically we just got to hold on. We've got to play our game, and it'll be okay. Was it kind of a boring game? Yeah, I think it kind of was. The run game for Michigan, I'm not sure what's happened to it. The offensive line's beat up. If you look at the pass game, J.J. McCarthy, it always feels like you're kind of on thin ice with him. Like either it's going to be a spectacular play or it could be a pick six going the other way. So Michigan was able to hold on and get away with a victory. And then things just kind of started to fall into place here. And it was kind of written. It was going to be Alabama. Texas was going to jump to 3. That's going to be a very interesting matchup against Washington. And Alabama was going to take the 4th seed. And so now Michigan has a bit of a challenge on its hands. And look, when it was announced, me and you had a brief conversation. I'm not sure if you were traveling or if you were getting ready for the Lions game. I'm not sure where you were, but you ended up messaging me and you're like, look, it was a fun season for Michigan. Alabama's going to toast that ass. And I find that to be interesting that you feel that way, that you feel that Alabama is this much better than Michigan, because I've watched a couple of Alabama games this year, and I think Alabama has gotten better as the year has wore on. I think Alabama has figured a couple of things out. I think their quarterback has gotten much better. Jalen Milroe has really kind of put it together. I think he's a bit of an elusive quarterback. He's a guy who can run. He's mobile. He can make big splash plays. I think their offense is very explosive because of Milroe. I think their defense is okay. I don't think it's this vintage Alabama defense. Now, yeah, they did pop the number 1 team in the country, a team that hasn't really lost a game. Yeah, a team that hasn't lost a game in over 2 years. So that's impressive in and of itself, and that is half the reason why they are going to the college football playoff. But you say that they are going to toast Michigan, and I just kind of want to get an understanding of why you feel that way.
Okay, first and foremost, obviously seeing what Alabama was able to do. They turned on the Jets, man, against the Georgia Bulldogs. I thought that their run game was spectacular. I thought the decision-making, obviously, of Milroe was spectacular. I thought that when I looked at the defense, too, I said, okay, this is a big physical defense that get after it and can do some things. But also the way I guess I looked at it, too, was not really looking too much deeply at Alabama. I'm looking at Michigan, and I say, okay, this is how you're playing against Iowa. And here's the strength, I think, obviously, that Michigan's going to want to do. They're going to want to run the football. But you don't think with a month preparation that Alabama is going to load it up and try and make J.J. McCarthy throw the football? And I think they can. And I think one of the greatest coaches in the history of the game is going to take away 2 players. Not J.J. McCarthy. He's going to take away Loveland and Corum. He knows, okay, key third downs, they go to Loveland. Key early downs, they run the ball with Corum. If you stop that, J.J. McCarthy is not throwing the football. They don't move the football. And here was my biggest wart that I saw. Iowa laid it out, and my big note that I put here in front of me, Iowa laid it out that if you bring pressure from different spots, especially with the injury to Zach Zenner. Now, if Zach Zenner's in the game, I'm talking, my tone's a little bit different. I'm not puffing my chest out for the greatest Michigan State former coach of all time and Nick Saban. I'm saying that it's going to be more competitive. I think Alabama, if they can weather the early storm and they can get to J.J. McCarthy, I think the Wolverines' offensive line gets tested here, and I don't know if they answer the bell. It could be a close game. Maybe I'm wrong in regards to, obviously wanting Nick Saban to toast Michigan, but I think Alabama has a lot to prove, and they got a lot of talented weapons that can do some things, and I just think that if Michigan doesn't get out to the early lead if they get down 10 points? Because Michigan all year has played their game. All third downs, they get into third down and 7, and boom, they throw it to Loveland. Nobody can cover them. And it's like, what the hell? And you realize, okay, Alabama is not going to have those warts. They know exactly who to target. They're gonna stop 2 guys. And if they can do that, I don't know. Do you call upon your most favorite backup in Donovan Edwards? Do others make plays? I think it's going to be a knock them out, drag them out kind of game, but I just see Alabama having the edge, especially with their defense, and I just think that Michigan's offensive line has the biggest question mark here heading into this game. And those were my early thoughts. I just thought, man, that injury to Zenner really puts the Michigan offense in a bind, and I think they'll come up with some good answers. But, man, I can't wait for this game. I can't wait to see it. I think it's 2 great minds in Jim Harbaugh and Nick Saban. Nobody loves beating Michigan more probably than Nick Saban will, and he's got a lot to prove as well, and January 1st it's going to happen. But I do think that do you think in some way this is a game that J.J. McCarthy is going to need to obviously step it up and zing the football all over the place, find new targets, get Roman Wilson involved, get others involved in this contest and figure it out? Or do they go with, let's pound the rock and see what happens?
So I think initially you're probably going to come out and you're going to try to pound the rock. And I love your game plan. I think what you laid out is what Alabama is going to do, because those are the 2 big offensive weapons that they have. But that being said, this is where if J.J. McCarthy is bothered by an ankle injury, you've got a lot of time now for it to rest and heal up. He's going to have to be this MVP caliber quarterback in this game. He's going to have to be, for all those Michigan fans that were opining about him being a Heisman candidate earlier this year, he's going to have to show that in this game. And I think what'll happen is, look, Loveland will probably get taken away. Corum will probably be slowed down. I think that's when you lean on other guys like a Roman Wilson and A.J. Barner. I think you'll use Cornelius Johnson a little bit more. He was used quite a bit in this game against Iowa, and that's a guy who really, to me, it's felt like he's been on the shelf most of the season. I think they're going to have to throw a little bit of a different game plan at Alabama than they've done basically through the latter half of the Big Ten season. I think you're going to have to see some of what they did earlier this year, where they were a little bit more apt to pass the ball. And I think that's what they're going to have to do to take advantage of this Alabama defense. Alabama is gettable, but you have to be able to stretch the field, and you have to be able to take shots downfield in order to take advantage of that defense. If you are going to line up, you're going to try to run the ball 67 times, it's going to be a very, very slow, hard day at the office. And look, a lot of, I think, what we're seeing as far as some of these struggles with Michigan in that lack of explosivity is that offensive line. That offensive line's not right. You lose Zach Zenner, who is arguably your best offensive lineman. Things have to change. But you have time now. You have almost 4 weeks to get things figured out, to get things corrected, to get these guys in a position to be able to do things. If you can get that offensive line right, or at least better than what it's been, I think you really have a good chance of beating Alabama. I think it's going to be an incredibly close game. I think this is going to be one of those games where these 2 teams are quite similar. I do think that Alabama's offense is a little bit more explosive, and that's because of Jalen Milroe. I think he's a little bit better of a quarterback than J.J. McCarthy at this point. And I think they have a good defense, but I think Michigan's defense is a little bit better and a little bit more opportunistic. So I really do feel like it's going to be one of those things where you're going to pit your best against their best, and it's going to be just a fight. It's going to be a knockout, drag-out brawl, and I think Michigan has a chance to win this game. Now, you're going to have to be effective. You're going to have to protect the ball. You do not want to turn it over. And you're going to have to find other options. You're going to have to find other guys that you can get the ball to. So, like, if they do take a guy like Roman Wilson away, you're going to have to go through your progressions, and you're going to have to find the guy who's open and who's available. But I think it's going to be a fun matchup. I think it's going to be a good matchup. This is something that I will obviously be building my New Year's Day around. I think you will as well. And it should be interesting. It should be a lot of fun to watch. And again, Alabama is deserving of this. Alabama is a good team. And again, It's college football. If you don't like it, just follow the bunny. There's a reason that the SEC has been a part of every single college football playoff. There's a lot of money in the SEC. There's a lot. So there's a reason that they're a part of it. If you feel like Florida State was robbed, Florida State knew what they had to do, and they couldn't execute. You had to go out there and you had to hang some crooked numbers on Louisville, and you couldn't get it done. So this sets up beautifully. If you're Michigan, this is pretty much what you should have been begging for. You should have been asking for this type of matchup. Look, you have all this negativity all season long surrounding you regarding Connor Stallions, regarding the sign-stealing scandal, regarding all of that. You have handled the toughest part of your schedule with him not being a part of your program. You've handled the toughest part of your schedule without your head coach being a part of your program. You got through your championship game. This now sets up for you. You have to go out and you have to take on – you're going to have to take on two of the four best teams in college football to win a national championship. So it starts with Alabama, and then it will end with either Texas or Washington, and I'm looking forward to that game as well. That should be a great game as well. But if you want what you deserve, what you feel you deserve, you need to handle the business in front of you, and you need to go take out Alabama and then get to that next level and win that national championship.
Oh, I can't wait to see this. I love the four. I love the two games. I love the seeding. I'm excited to see how it plays out. And it just is unfortunate, that Florida State got their quarterback injured. It just was really unfortunate. And what did you make of the reaction at Indy? Did you say, well, because here's what happened online. They obviously pan, and they have a lot of reporters that are sitting with the Michigan Wolverines, and they announce it. And I thought it was great the way they announced it on TV. Obviously, the commercials, they tease it, they make you wait. And they come back, and they announce, I think, 1-2, and then they announce 6, and then they announce the number 4 team. And it was, when it was announced to be Alabama, people caught the footage, and everyone was like, oh, and I was like, oh, that's what was kind of my reaction too, like, oh shit, Michigan fans wanted to trounce Florida State, and I think fair, without their starting quarterback, I think it would have been an easy contest. I don't see.
For sure.
I think Keon Coleman would have been motivated. I don't know if he's going to even participate now that it's a situation in which there's nothing really to play for. It'll be interesting to see George. There was a funny photo of both Georgia's coach and Florida State's coach just kind of looking like that was the last place they wanted to be, was at a press conference promoting a game after not making it. Do you think fans a little bit concerned with Alabama, because obviously it's Nick Saban, and this is it. I think this is the year. Next year it just gets so much tougher. You can get into the field of 12, but winning it is going to be spectacularly tough, especially if Jim Harbaugh leaves and the competition just gets better. I think it's the big role. I have a feeling if Michigan wins it, they probably will handle Washington and Texas because the momentum will be so strong a week later. But we'll see. For me, I want the ultimate pain. I want you to beat Alabama, ride high, and go up against Texas and or Washington and feel the ultimate pain of losing it, because that's a tough pain. But what'd you make of that video? I thought it was great. It went viral. Many people were like, "What is it all about?" I know Michigan tried to downplay it, and we're like, "No, they just were reacting to Florida State not being in it." No, I think many people at the same time said, "Oh, if it's not Florida State, then that's Alabama, and that's Nick Saban, and that's a big problem."
Yeah, I think if you, even as a Michigan fan, I wanted Florida State. I mean, like that's the path that you want, the path of least resistance. If you are a Michigan Wolverine, if you are a player, you wanted Florida State. Like, let's be honest. Like, just be truthful about it. You wanted Florida State. I think everybody who's a Michigan fan wanted Florida State because they're a wounded dog right now. But when you look at what the committee did, the committee got it right. And if you want everything that you feel you deserve, the road's going to have to be tough, and you're going to have to get through Alabama, and it's just going to be what it is. But yeah, man, I mean, look, when I found out it was Alabama, I was like, whew, well, this is going to be tough, and as it should be, right? You're going for a national championship, so it should be tough. But you had to know that was going to be a possibility. There was no givens for Florida State because, again, they didn't do what they were supposed to do. You had 13 points is what I think what they ended up winning with, or maybe it was 16 points that they ended up winning with. It was 16 points is what you won with. Like, you didn't do a good enough job, So this totally makes sense to me. Totally makes sense to me that they're on the outs. But yeah, I wanted Florida State because they're beat up, man. This is here's the thing. This is going to sound really disrespectful, but I don't care. when it comes to college football, I respect the SEC, I respect the Big Ten, and that's about it. I think the ACC, for the most part, is usually a clown show. There's usually one team that is kind of decent, and they're usually the team that's interesting. Sometimes they'll get into it, into the college football playoff. When you look at the Big 12, I think the Big 12 is usually a mess. And then you look at the Pac-12. Pac-12 doesn't even exist anymore. This is one of the rare years where I feel like you have two of arguably the top 4 or 5 teams in the country playing in the Pac-12, and those teams are coming over to the Big Ten now. Going into Friday night with Oregon and Washington, I thought that Oregon was the best team in college football. My thought was I want Oregon to win because I like Oregon. I like how they play football. But my thought process was if they win, Michigan's going to probably have to match up against them, and that is scary to me. That is incredibly scary to me. Like scarier than Alabama. Like at this point, it's been a bit of a weird year for Alabama. But like I'm more scared of a 2-loss Oregon team than I am a 1-loss Alabama team. If that puts anything into perspective for you, I did not want to face Oregon. But this is one of those years where you have two teams in the Pac-12 that are arguably in the top 5. Usually the Pac-12 just cannibalizes itself. They just end up taking each other out, you know? USC is a big name, a big program, and what do they do? They usually lay farts and lay duds. Washington is usually a team that collapses down the stretch. Oregon is usually a team that has a weird hiccup, and in this case, they had one weird hiccup, and it just happened to be Washington, and they played them twice. So when it comes to the Pac-12, I don't really respect them either, you know. So after that, it's just kind of it's what. So whoever was coming from the ACC, if they were getting into it, I didn't care. I wanted to play you because I don't respect you. I don't think you're all that good. As far as Alabama goes, obviously you respect them. They at a certain point or earlier in this year or this century, they had a freaking dynasty. You know, I mean, Nick Saban is a hell of a football coach. So whether it was going to be Georgia or whether it was going to be Alabama, you knew one of those teams were going to make it, and it was going to be a bit of a challenge, and it's going to be a bit of a chore. So just strap your helmet on and go take care of business. That's all I can say about it.
I like the analysis, too, that was given that if they considered putting Florida State in, they wouldn't have put them at number 4. They would have put them at number 3 and just moved down Texas because if Florida State was going to be a team that was considered, they were undefeated. And a conference champion, you would think, would have a little bit more cachet. So that injury to the quarterback is just devastating, and it really does stink, too, that it's the idea, too, of looking at matchups and looking at the competitive. It is disrespectful to Florida State because, in essence, they're saying, look, we don't think that you could beat Michigan, and we don't want to put you on TV to get your ass kicked. That's a general consensus, so I think it would behoove them to kick the ass of whoever it is that they're playing, Georgia, to whoop them, but I don't know if they can. So we'll see if, you know, the bowl game bears fruit or if it's just a disaster where two college teams that wanted to be in the playoff. Did Georgia get screwed? Because I think that too many people are saying, okay, fine, let's move on from Florida State and their victimhood and their sob story. Does Georgia have an argument to say, look, we didn't lose to some crumb bum team. We won every game in the SEC. We played an opponent that was super solid, but in the end ended up being one of the teams that's a blue blood. Could you have made a case that Georgia should have just not fallen? I know it's tough to, you know, obviously Ohio State, we've seen that here in recent past of a team that doesn't win their conference title. I think conference title should have more meaning, so I'm okay with it, but I could have also seen a case where you maybe even have Georgia in over Texas if you really wanted to, but I just thought that Georgia-Alabama is a playoff game and you get eliminated, but I could also see the case you could say, you know what, Alabama-Georgia, Washington, and Michigan also could make for a juicier rated, high-rated college football playoff.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that argument, but when you really look at Georgia's line of work,
yeah,
they didn't really play anybody this year.
Same with Florida State.
Yeah, like cool. You beat up on some bad teams, and when you finally face somebody, you got popped. And yeah, it was a close game, but you got popped. And I think going into it, you kind of knew that Georgia had to take care of business. Yep. Otherwise, what you needed Texas to get upset. You needed possibly Washington to get upset. You needed a lot of things to go right for Georgia to lose this game and get in. So it was one of those things where, again, you didn't do enough during the regular season. Like let me put it like this. I wouldn't have been surprised if Michigan lost to Iowa. I wouldn't have been surprised if they didn't get in, because the first half, basically the first 3 quarters of their schedule was trash. They didn't play anybody. I mean, you really look at who they played. They played Penn State, and they ended up playing Ohio State. And yeah, they took care of business in both of those games, but those were like the only 2 games that they really played this entire year. You look at what Georgia did. Kentucky's having a down year. Don't think they're very good. Missouri is okay, but I don't really know what Missouri is. Ole Miss, I do not put a lot of stock in them. Tennessee is, I think they're ranked in the top 25 somewhere, but like you're not in the top 10. These aren't top 10 teams. You know what I'm saying? The one team that you played that was worth a damn was Alabama, and they beat you. So a lot of things would have had to have fell right for Georgia to make it if they lost. And again, I could see where you're coming from, because it would be interesting to see Georgia in there. It'd be interesting to see Alabama in there. It'd be interesting to see Washington and Michigan in there, all vying for a spot. And look, to be honest with you, if I was on the committee, I could see the committee wanting Oregon to beat Washington. So then what you could set up is you could have Michigan, you could have Georgia, you could have Alabama, you could have, if you wanted to, you could probably have moved Oregon into that spot, or you could have, if Texas won the way they did, you could have moved Texas into that spot. And I feel like it would have been a little bit easier for you if you were on that committee. But again, I don't necessarily have an issue with what the committee did. I think it sets up for really, really good football. You're going to end your season with some really, really good games.
Yes.
And you got 2 teams in Michigan and Alabama who, to me, feel like they are very similar. I don't want to say they're carbon copies of each other, but they are very similar in the way that they want to play. They're very similar in what they want to do and how they want to impose their will on you. And it's going to be who can execute the best in that game. And it's going to set up for something interesting. And on the flip side, the other game, 2 teams that are incredibly explosive, incredibly offensive minded, and can do a lot of awesome things on the offensive side of the ball. So that one's going to be a fun game to watch on New Year's night. So I think they
New
got
Year's Day,
right, man.
New Year's Day, baby. New Year's Day. Definitely New Year's night for the nightcap there as well, man. Whew. Man, it's gonna be great. What do you got plans for New Year's Eve?
I don't know what I'm doing yet on New Year's Eve. I know so last time I checked, I'm supposed to be covering for work. So I've got to kind of keep the genie in the bottle in case I get a call. So I'll be on call for New Year's, I think.
This is the first year I got to maybe even hit a Red Bull and try to stay up, because I've been hitting that 9:30, 10 o'clock sleep schedule like a mofo, man. I'm loving it. I'm like, holy shit, 5 and 8. What if the Michigan game goes to overtime? You're talking 3.5, 4 hours. You might have one game going into the next. That's how long these games are. So we'll see. New Year's Day, New Year's night, January 1st, I think, is a Monday. So it'll be on the heels of hopefully a Lions win over Dallas. Day to rest on New Year's, relax, have a good time that evening, and then that Monday. Whew, I can't wait. I can't wait for the college football playoff. It was good, man. It was a good year. Hopefully now we'll see what I think the opportunity to increase the number of teams to 12 it came at the exact right time, and I can't wait to next year to see which 12 teams and how it shakes out for the 13th, 14th, 15th team. How close is it? Does it increase debate? Does it increase the vitriol? So we'll see. But it was a good college football season, and now we get 2 big games. The rest of the bowl season, I'm not interested. Motor City Bowl, I was like, dude, I'm not interested in nothing. I mean, maybe as we get closer, I think the couple weeks off will be good, because I ingested a lot of college football this year. With DVR, it was great. Got to fast forward through all the nonsense, but still took 2.5 hours on average to get through a lot of these games to digest everything that you're seeing. So I think a couple weeks off definitely will do me some good. I can't wait for the college football playoff. Now, switch gears to talk about a football team for the first time since 1962 are 9-3. It's amazing in that you sit down and within like 10 minutes it was 21-0. So it shook out where you're just like, holy shit, the Lions could whoop ass. And I think that's what everybody kind of wants to see. I think we're due again because the Lions have been playing a bunch of close games intermixed with some losses. People wanted to see a nice ass whooping with all the fans that took over New Orleans. y'all are, I thought the economy was slowing down. Y'all are out there doing your thing, traveling across the world. I was like, where are y'all getting this cheddar? I maybe have an idea of where all this newfound money has been coming from the ground, but maybe we'll see. But y'all are traveling like y'all got some extra expenditory cash. I'm like, how the hell are there like thousands and thousands of people? I'm like, man, the ground business and the horticulture, finally coming to fruition here from the States. Everybody's out there having a good old time, traveling to New Orleans, and it was fun, all kidding aside. Look, I didn't have any concern that the Lions were going to lose. I just thought that, man, you realize that the Saints are just a little bit below the Lions in regards to talent. Lions offensively, oh my God. When you see the potential of what they got, Sam Laporta firing on all cylinders, which I called, I knew, just nothing like not out of worldly NFL knowledge. It's just knowing that against tight ends, the Saints were god-awful. So the thing I'm most proud of with this Lions team is in years past, you and I would do a million podcasts and we'd say, okay, the Bears, Saints, they struggle against the run. And all of a sudden the Lions would come out with the first 10 plays and throw the football. And you'd be like, didn't they read the prep sheet? Like, what the hell's going on? Saints can't cover the run, couldn't stop tight ends. And the Lions picked them apart and they took advantage early on. When it got later, I just was like, ugh. You got to kind of sit there as a writer and type all this stuff out, and it gets a little bit more hairy. But you look at the situations and you go, man, it's tough that the Lions weren't able to blow them out. But it was a good, hard-fought victory, and I thought was impressive.
Yeah, look, I think going on the road and eking out a win any way you can is impressive. But the way that game started and the way that game finished, if you're a Lions fan, you have to have concerns. And look, I love the fact that the offense was so explosive to start the game, but then that dries up and the defense allows them back in the game. And then this team struggles for basically the next 2 quarters to kind of figure it out. And then in the fourth quarter, they're able to put some points on the board. It's to me, this team right now feels like it's very boom or bust, right? And a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about this team possibly playing in a Super Bowl. I no longer have that confidence. I no longer feel like this team is going to be able to ascend to that level. I no longer have this confidence that this team can get into a matchup and possibly win the NFC Championship. I feel like at this moment in time, we've kind of had this coming back to earth, this grounding, if you will, because what you're seeing on offense and what you're seeing on defense, it in the middle of the game, it's like two sides of a coin, And this kind of leads me to I guess our one of our first topics regarding the Lions is, does this offense get a little bit too cute? Because as I'm watching this game unfold and as I'm watching how things are working, yeah, they start off quick and a lot of things are working really, really well. And then you get into these spots where you've got to execute a third down. And unless there's a conversation that has already been had where it's been said, hey, look, we're going to go for it on fourth down, I don't understand why they're running some of these plays that they're running. You have the ability to line up and punch them in the face and run the ball and pick up 7 yards at a time. Instead, what you want to do is you want to trick around and you want to throw this weird screen pass in your backfield that has 3 guys covering either Gibbs or covering David Montgomery, and it just doesn't work. Things just aren't working. As this game unfolded, you basically had a guy, not even a wide receiver. You had a tight end who was catching everything thrown to him. This guy gets separation. Put him in a spot to make a play. Allow Jared Goff to target him and get him the ball when you need to pick up critical yards. You have Amon-Ra St. Brown. Amon-Ra St. Brown had a drop in this game that was uncharacteristic. But again, he's your best offensive weapon. Get him the ball. To me, it feels like sometimes this offense just kind of overthinks itself. And it gets a little bit too cute, gets a little bit too sweet. And what happens is now you're going from 3rd and 2 to 4th and 8, 4th and 6. And all of a sudden now you've got to punt the ball and you got to hand the ball back over to New Orleans, who then is taking advantage of it because we're going to get into the defense in a little bit. The defense can't stop anybody. Defense can't stop a nosebleed. So to me, it really feels like this game, as much as it was a Lions win, it feels like they are incredibly lucky to come away with a victory, because this game could have went the other way very, very fast. And if you look at the box score, it's a good thing that they jumped out to that early lead and were able to execute and almost put the Saints in a state of shell shock, because the Saints, it took them a whole quarter to kind of figure out what the hell was going on. And then they started putting some points on the board. And I know your favorite your favorite subject is the third quarter woes. They ended up, this game gets incredibly close in the third quarter for this team. And it's just one of those things where they can't seem to hit the accelerator. It seems like they're stuck in neutral, and they eventually figure it out. But it's just like, damn, come on, guys. This doesn't look like that offense that was beating teams by 2 touchdowns. You know what I'm saying? It seems like this offense is a little bit stuck in the mud. I don't know if Ben Johnson has maybe been figured out and is just maybe a little bit too reluctant to try different things or to kind of deviate from his game plan. That might be more of what it is. He goes into these games, he says, this is what we have to do, and he just doesn't want to deviate from that. But something has to change on this offense. Something has to kick this offense into overdrive, because we're going to get into the defense in a little bit. Like I said, the defense at this moment in time really feels like it's your Achilles heel. Does the offense try to mess around too much? Does it get a little bit too cute in your estimation with what you're watching, what you're seeing? Because it feels like this is a different offense at this stage of the game compared to what it was earlier in the year, where they were just like a hot knife through butter cutting through teams.
Yeah, third quarter has just been a terrible quarter. It's just been weird to see the difference in the way in which they play in the third quarter. And a lot of people have been looking at it and wondering, well, that means the Lions are not that great at adjusting. And it just, obviously teams make adjustments. And naturally, when you're up 21-0, you just sometimes naturally are going to let off the gas. And early on, the Saints made mistakes. And they get paid too. Derek Carr, Alvin Kamara, Chris Olave, you could see the talent. They obviously picked on Jerry Jacobs, which was smart to do. They went at the young rookie offensive lineman in Colby Sorsdal to get pressure from that side to try and impact the offense. So I look at it and I say, okay, the other teams understand what to do in order to limit the Lions. But on the other end, the Lions make plays. They know that they have enough to weather the storm and play their best football in the fourth quarter. And that's money time. And this team has been built now to win. And you still got to give, look, what have we asked for? Give the ball to J-Mo. Boom, you give him on an end around, which we've all been clamoring for. And the man literally took off and jumped like 40 feet in the air and got into the end zone.
He flew into the end zone.
He flew into the end zone. And it was crazy to see how fast the man can zoom.
My man looked like Mel Farr, the superstar.
Exactly. It was awesome to see. So I say, yeah, there's things to be concerned about when you project it. Can the Lions play that way defensively in the playoffs? No. I think the Lions want to play a tight game, and in the end, in the fourth quarter, they want that one key turnover. Aiden makes the key play late, and that's what you got to do. But I love Bruce Irvin coming in, and I know he took the penalty, but it was a great trade-off. 15 yards to knock out the starter. We'll take that. That was kneecaps personified. And, dude, I love the swagger, and I was one of the first people to talk to him, and I got that sense that he was a violent dude. Like, it was a weird situation in that I kind of found myself like intrigued by the man's love of violence, that we just started conversating, and I think he loved my energetic response. I'm like, yeah, you want to sack the quarterback? And we talked about sacks for like 10 minutes. Like, how do you get sacks? What makes you love sacks? And he's like, I'm not here to mess around. I'm here to hurt people. And he's like, I'm here to fuck up the room. And I was like, damn, I love it. I love the swagger. Not literally, he's saying, I'm here to like show people that I'm the man, and we're not here to mess around. My job is to hit the quarterback. And he ended up doing it in his 11 snaps, got to the quarterback a little bit, sacked the quarterback, brings a little bit of that swagger. Now, obviously, it sucks that you lose Aleem McNeil, Frank Ragnow. That's a little bit of a dinger, but you have Jack Campbell and you have others that can fill in for Alex Anzalone, who missed, and you got these new young cats in Quentin Bohanna that you're probably going to bring up soon. So it'll be interesting to see how the Lions move forward. But I give them credit for being able to win. Yeah, there are awards, but I say, look, they're 9-3, and they know they don't have their prime A roster yet. They're still building. They're going to add another draft class and another free agency period where you trim the fat a little bit. You upgrade from Jerry Jacobs and Cam Sutton. You put Sutton at the number 2 cornerback spot instead of the number 1. and you upgrade and you maybe get CD Deuce back next year, I think things are better. I think the concerns are legitimate, definitely legitimate, but they're still able to win, not playing their best brand of football. So if they get to the playoffs, it's going to be fun to talk about. And next week or so, we'll talk more about it as it shakes out, because we are hitting a couple full circle moments here. What if the Rams show up to Ford Field? Man, would that be root for drama and root for full circle shit? Like, could Stafford finally pull off a fourth quarter comeback at Ford Field in the postseason to end the Lions season? Goff versus McVay. McVay unlocks all the turnovers. Oh, or do you have the Packers reliving that nightmare, or the Cowboys? So much good stories in the postseason. But okay, we do got to talk about solutions. We do got to talk about at least improving. How does this defense get right? You're not pressuring the quarterback. You kind of bend and break a little bit, but stiffen up at the right time. How does this defense step it up? Now, especially with Aleem McNeil gone. I think he's, as we're recording this, Aleem McNeil on the IR.
Yeah, it really feels like this team lives on making that critical turnover. It lives on putting the other team in a spot where they can force a critical turnover and capitalize on it. Otherwise, they're just kind of, like you said, it's a lot of bending, hoping you don't break. Honestly, I feel like you somehow have to get this pass rush figured out. You got to get it better. Whether you're going to bring a linebacker up and put them on the line, or just, I don't know, get more creative with how you use Aiden Hutchinson. I know that the guy commands a double team. I get it, right? But move him all over the place. Don't just line him up out wide. Take him off the line. Put somebody else in his spot and have him basically filling a gap where he can act almost like he's a linebacker. Stand him up. He works better that way, right? So move him inside and stand him up. You don't have to have him in a 3-point stance. You don't have to have him in a 4-point stance all the time. So stand him up on the inside and have him go rush the quarterback. Have him get there. Have him put pressures on and hit the quarterback. Look, I love the stats that he has, where he has 1,000,001 QB pressures. But at a certain point, you got to get home. You got to hit the quarterback. And it was nice to see Bruce Irving do it. It was nice to see Bruce Irving come in and basically kill David Carr or Derek Carr. It was nice to see him just murder him. But at the same point, he's only playing a handful of snaps. He's a rotational player. You need to line somebody else up outside with Aiden Hutchinson. And now you lose Aleem McNeil, who is arguably one of your most impactful interior defensive linemen. So you're going to have to turn to, I don't know, maybe Isaiah Buggs. Where's he been? Well, or maybe Broderick Martin. Where's he been? He's on the side of a milk carton. What is he doing? Do you realize this? They moved up to get this guy in the third round, and he's basically contributed nothing. He's done nothing. What makes him so special that you had to move up to go get him? The guy hasn't given you anything. I've got a bag full of clothes in my office right now that's going to Salvation Army. That's done more than Broderick Martin has done for this team. So let that sink in. You need to figure out how you're going to get more pressure and more attention on the quarterbacks from your defensive line. Like I said, I would get creative. I would probably move a linebacker up, whether it's Rodrigo or even Jack Campbell, who had arguably his best game of his career thus far against New Orleans. You have to be able to get some pressure on the quarterbacks, and the secondary has to be able to cover. The secondary has to be able to lock down guys. Coverage sacks are a thing, and if you can put your secondary in a position where they're not getting beat off the ball, I don't think that this secondary has anybody who's an elite speedster, right? I don't think they have anybody who's going to be able to line up with a guy like Tyreek Hill and basically go stride for stride with him. So put this defense in a position. I know that you like to jam guys off the line. I get it, but sometimes you got to play with a little bit of a cushion. If it's like third and forever, there's no reason for your guy to be up on the line. It just isn't. Let them play off a little bit and let them play that coverage and I don't know, maybe switch with your secondary, maybe switch to a man-to-man instead of maybe a zone, and allow your safeties to maybe either come up or run a little bit free. Figure a couple of things out. You can come up with creative defenses. That's what Aaron Glenn gets paid to do, and I'm just not seeing it. I'm not seeing any type of creativity from him. I'm not seeing anybody really be put in positions to really exceed or excel. I felt like last year, the second half of the season, guys were all over the place. Guys were put in positions where they were forced to excel. You know what I'm saying? Like you were in a spot where you had to make the right play because it was the only option for you. You have to figure that out. You've got to be able to do that. And again, if it means bringing a linebacker up, or if it means switching from a zone to a man-to-man for your secondary, or if it means moving guys around on the line. Here's the thing. The offense is allowed to shift. They're allowed to move around. Usually when they do that, they're trying to figure out what you're in, either man, zone. They're trying to look where the pressure's coming from. You can do the same thing. As the defense, you can move around. You're allowed to get up. You're allowed to move. As long as you don't cross over into that neutral zone, you're allowed to move around. You can do damn near whatever you want on the other side of the ball. I don't know why they don't do that. Sometimes that movement helps draw guys off sides. And next thing you know, you're moving them back 5 yards. And now you're taking that 1st and 10 and making it a 1st and 15, and that's a lot harder. Now that team has to stay on time. That team has to be able to pick up yards on that first down. And if you can disrupt that, now they're at 2nd and 15. A lot of times, that's already the down's already over. It's already over. The ball's coming back your way. So you've got to get a little bit creative. You got to figure some stuff out. I really think Aaron Glenn has to go into a think tank, and he's got to figure out ways to put his secondary in better spots, and he's got to figure out ways to get more pressure on the quarterback, whether it's moving guys around or whether it's just doing different things, showing different fronts on that defensive side of the ball. Defense is so frustrating for me, man. I'm sorry. Like, just watching this game just really irked me, really pissed me off.
Yeah, when you cover the Lions, you know what's fun is watching a shitty defensive performance and then having to do it on a Monday to kind of know what you're talking about. And I was like, man, that's the worst. Sometimes you delay it till Tuesday, but sometimes you just get it out. Luckily, they have the 45-minute version, and you can just get through it. But it's and here's the thing. Obviously, I watch a lot of games, and obviously I'm going to check into the Jets defense because it's legendary. It's crazy because they got a world-class defense and a world-class shitty offense for years and years. And maybe it'll come to fruition that Saleh gets fired and he comes here if it's
not
best
happening.
Case scenario. And look, we don't wish bad things happening. Best case scenario, a team hires Glenn. We get a 3rd-round pick for a minority candidate getting a head coaching job, and you get Saleh come back to Detroit. And if you picture Dan Campbell with Robert Saleh, oh my goodness. I mean, that's what we want. And I think that's where fans are. People are like,
that's
I love
John's
what fans
wet dream.
enjoy the ride. Yeah, okay. We're Lions fans. We understand what Lions means, and we're seeing that if the Lions defense plays like that against Matthew Stafford, he's going to carve that ass up. And we don't want that. We want to see a team. Really, I think Detroit's built on, they love the offense. They love seeing J-Mo. They love that. But this is Detroit. We want to see like a Chris Spielman like linebacker. We want to see hits. We want to see sacks. Josh Allen with the Jaguars, 12.5 sacks. We want to see Myles Garrett just flaunt. We want to see Bruce Irvin drive his ass into the quarterback and take a guy out. So that's what we like. I think that's where people are wondering, like, oh, enjoy the ride. No, we are projecting to see what this team could look like in the postseason. And yeah, we've seen teams win 10 games, 11 games for the Lions, but we haven't seen playoff wins. And we still believe in the playoffs, defense wins championships. So we'll see if the defense and to put it into context, because people are always wondering, they go online, they start doing this dance of like, well, we won the game. Why are you criticizing? Aaron Glenn, OG, stood up in front of the media and said, I want to be discussed in our program where if our team goes 9-8, y'all talk about firing me. I want to be elite. So that's the standard. I'm not just making it up, and I love that. I think that's the best standard to have, is not to toot your own. I mean, yeah, I like to toot my own horn once in a while, but the idea is, okay, if we did this year, what do we do the next year? That's the idea, is to not just sit there and go, oh, well, I took a podcast and did this and I did that. You just try to do better each week. Try to be the best version of yourself as possible. So AG told us to criticize the man. So what are we doing? We're criticizing the man. That's not an elite defense. That's not elite. To give up 28 points, to be 22nd and I think points allowed and things like that. Yeah, we can do a bunch of different things and spin numbers and say, well, they got the DVOA 10th ranked defense. Well, yeah, because of the fact that they do some things well with turnovers and they factor everything, yards and the whole combo. But in the end, they're giving up too many yards and too many points. And AG said it. We're critiquing them. And now you're trying to battle for the best playoff seeding possible. So you got to go on the road this week against the Bears. and I think Justin Fields is going to play his best game, and you got to weather the storm. I think this one has another chance to be a shootout. This one kind of has a feel of a trap game to me, knowing that the next game I think is the Denver game, which is going to have super meaning. This one, I'm leaning a little bit toward a real close contest, and early in the week, I'm not so certain that the Lions get this one. And the weather's going to be absolutely shitty, so it could lend to the Lions, running the football.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a lot of running the football. Again, Jared Goff does not do a great job outdoors, especially in inclement weather. So I think he will play a very average to subpar game. I think it's going to be a lot of run, a lot of pounding it down your throat, a lot of trying to get guys in space and let them create. I expect a lot of short passes. I really don't expect anything too much downfield. And look, Justin Fields is going to be a problem. He's going to be an issue for you. He was an issue for you when he was here. So you've got to do a good job of staying in your lane, doing your job, keeping him contained. Try not to flush him out of the pocket. Try to constrict the pocket and surround him and bring him down. And that's what's going to be the big challenge for this defense, because this defense, whenever they play him, they seem to love to just kind of run everywhere. And he just takes advantage of it. So I think this is going to be a close game. I think the Lions are going to win it. I think this game really comes down to a couple of mistakes. I think Justin Fields is more prone to make those mistakes than the Lions are. I think final score, I'm thinking 28-27. I think it's that close of a game.
Justin Fields, do they stop him? I mean, it's tough because everybody that's nervous about the defense is looking at it and saying, man, the Lions struggle against running quarterbacks. And I know Russell Wilson's not super mobile, but he can move the pocket a little bit. Do they focus in on Justin Fields and make his day a nightmare, or does he just really struggle and do his thing, or does DJ Moore do his thing? It feels like a DJ Moore kind of game, a game for Cole Kmet, the fabulous tight end. I just think that if you clean up your mistakes, you said it yourself, Ben Johnson's got to be a little more creative in the red zone. They got to do their thing. I think that this could also be a J-Mo tight end game for Sam Laporta. I think David Montgomery's going to want to ball out. The Lions offensively, I think, will be okay. The big question is, can the defense stop Justin Fields? I think that's obviously key number one. I just think Justin Fields is going to want to do his thing.
Yeah, look, I think Justin Fields is going to have a good day. But that being said, I think you take a lot from what happened a couple of weeks ago. You understand how this team can beat you. So don't do that again. Don't put yourselves in those spots. I think this team plays a much more concerted and concentrated effort on defense. And I think they do a good job bottling up Justin Fields. And I think they make his day a little bit tougher than it was when he was here playing. Again, I think defense gets it done. Again, it's going to be a close game. He's going to put points on the board. He's going to beat you a certain number of times. But I think they do a good enough job to slow him down to where they can get the win.
Nice. That's what's needed, man. 10-3, cuz? Oh, real fast. I think it has a close opportunity. There's a good enough chance that they get the win. With our last 2-3 minutes here, fantasy book it. Would you want to see Jim Harbaugh take the Bears job and have him in the division? I think it'd be crazy because you're going to have maybe just Dan Campbell light, because I know he likes to play smash mouth football. Crazy. People are saying, well, he could just draft J.J. McCarthy and bring him there. And could you imagine Jim Harbaugh twice a year, Lions and Bears? I think that'd be fantastic for coverage. Fantastic, the matchup to match wits. And there is that hidden NFL coach that's just lurking. But I don't know. Is 7 years seems like way too removed. Like, he's not going to come back like CM Punk and just revolutionize football. I think his stick is figured out. I mean, a lot of teams run the ball. A lot of teams have a decent quarterback. But there is something to that, in that maybe he's changed and maybe he's a rah-rah guy and can get people in there. I just want to see it. I'd love to see Harbaugh match wits with Dan Campbell on the big stage.
I think it'd be interesting. I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah.
I don't think he goes to Chicago. Honestly, I don't even know what he does, man. I think a lot is going to weigh on what happens with the NCAA, what his penalty is going to be next year. If there was ever a place for him to go, I feel like Chicago is probably the most natural fit. But I don't know. I don't know if he goes there. I don't know if that's the case.
Yeah.
It really feels like Chicago, for as much as they did this year with free agency and acquiring draft capital, they still have a long way to go. And if you broom out if you broom out Eberflus and you bring in Harbaugh, my assumption is that you're trading Justin Fields. So now you've basically got to restart with another rookie quarterback. And that rookie quarterback would be tied to Harbaugh. And whether that's J.J. McDoodles or not, I don't know. Maybe it's Caleb Williams. I don't know. Maybe it's somebody else. Who knows? You basically have to start from scratch. And you are going to have to, and this is something that I think we all realize, especially as Michigan fans. I don't necessarily know if he's that quarterback whisperer, right? I don't believe he's that quarterback whisperer. I think you watch what happened in San Francisco, that wasn't Jim Harbaugh calling those plays. They had an offensive coordinator doing all of those things. You look at what's happened here. As far as quarterback play goes, it's basically Sherrone Moore. So I think he is a guy who does a really good job of motivating his players and getting his guys ready to go. I think when it comes to game planning and it comes to things, I think that's all on his coordinators. So I don't know. I mean, in the NFL, that is sometimes what works best. Just kind of having a guy who oversees everything and then steps in at the right time and gets guys kind of in the place that they need to be and just kind of work in the room and letting your coordinators do things. Sometimes that works the best. So maybe he'd be a good fit. Like as I talked my way through this, maybe I talked myself into it, but I don't know. Right now, I do not believe he goes to Chicago, but that might change in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, you never know. Do they go back to that? It'd be crazy to see. Man, oh man. Good stuff for the Lions. Look, they can still weather it, but primetime game against the Broncos, that really just sucks for me, man. I'm like, what the fuck? And then the next game after that, in a couple weeks, the Cowboys is on primetime as well. So I'm like, Jesus, these primetime games jack up the schedule all over the place. So we'll see how it all ends up shaking out. So, man, good stuff, cuz. Always enjoy the hour. It flies by. Make sure you follow Adam on Twitter at AdamRSJROZ. Follow the network at Detroit Podcast. We haven't even talked about Patrick Kane. He hasn't debuted yet, but we'll talk more about it when he hits the ice and see what he looks like as he's paired with his boy and see what he looks like on the Lions and what kind of contributions he can make to a team that's getting some points. Pistons, we turn on the microphone and they're still losing. So that's where they're at. It's unfortunate, but that's the status of the Pistons. Humbling to see a good coach like Monty Williams struggle to figure out what to do with the Pistons. It's a disgrace, and we'll see what lengths. If they don't win the contest, I think against the Wizards or their contest next, they literally could lose every single game. And I put it on Twitter at Detroit Podcast. If they lose every game in December, they will have set the record for the most consecutive losses in NBA history. I think it'd be 29 straight losses.
It's a record-setting team. Let's go.
I kind of want to see it for the train wreck situation, but we'll see what happens with the Pistons if they get the a W this week by the time we hit the next recording. Yes or no, real fast. Do they get a W this week, the Pistons?
No.
I can't wait to see what we talk about with the Pistons. Just throw it on there. We'll talk about the devastating month that they had, because when you go a whole month without winning a basketball game, that's definitely noteworthy. For the Jock, Adam Strozinski, I am the Doc, John Macaroon. Podcasting time is over. Can't wait to turn on the lights, fire up the microphone, and all the gear here at the office for the next episode of Doc and Jock.